A new rotation of the Stygian just started and it comes with a new boss, which as we all know means new mechanic. So in this video, I'll cover and fully explain the boss's mechanics in the simplest way, give you ideas of the best team to use, and also test the worst case scenario for those who really lack the characters. Remember, not every Stygian requires you to co-op with a C6 friend, and this one is probably one of it. And to be honest, even if you use C6 and still don't understand the mechanics, then you're still setting yourself up for failure. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first boss we have is a new one. Actually, he was released in the latest Nodcry expansion, so it only makes sense that the majority of you guys don't understand his mechanics. Trust me though, he's very simple once you get the hang of it. He's called the Lord of the Hidden Depth, but let's just call him the Overlord. Let's see what he has in store for us. Okay, so firstly, he has the highest amount of HP in this current Stygian, but don't let that scare you. Because unlike other bosses, he just holds a 10% resistance to all elemental damage. But that value drops down to negative 60% when he's stunned. When he spawns, he grants himself a special type of shield. Breaking this shield stuns him and shaves off 20% of his HP. And it's in this state that he gets a negative 60% resistance to all damage for 15 seconds. Which of course means he'll deal more damage. So by doing some simple math, you'll have to deal 7.63 million damage in one cycle. Generally though, we have enough time for him to cycle twice, so that number really drops to about 5 million damage, which, honestly, isn't quite bad. So now that begs the question, what's the secret to his shield? Well, it's simple. His shield has an HP equal to 45% of his HP. It's a lot, yes, but the secret is the fact that lunar damages will deal an enhanced 300%. So for lunar reactions, you're really working with about 15% of his HP. Aside from that, whenever this shield picks up lunar damage for the first time, you'll get 36 energy recharge particles. This is very important since the Stygian characters start with absolutely zero energy. So it's very essential and helpful to keep your cycle in check and viable. Be careful though, only the character that's on the field will get the energy. Now, what happens if you don't have a lunar character? Well, firstly, you're in deep trouble. But there's still a way, because during the first phase of the boss where its shield is up, after some moments it'll spawn 4 anglers. Each of the anglers has an HP equal to 18% of the boss's HP. Now defeating one of these anglers will reduce the boss shield by 25%, so defeating 4 of them is enough to stun him. Can these anglers take fall damage? Well, yes they can, but it's not sufficient in the long run as they are hardly staggered. You could decide to ignore these anglers and use non-lunar characters to attack the shield, but to be honest, it's quite tough. It's literally about 6 million HP, whereas it's about 1.8 million HP for lunar reactions. There is option 3 though, which is literally you just waiting it out for him to change phases. But that's a massive and boring waste of time. He won't be stunned and he won't lose the 20% HP, which you'd otherwise get if you broke his shield. So the summary is simple, break his shield and deal damage. If you don't have lunar characters, your best bet is to take your best DPS and use it to deal damage to the anglers. Although they each carry 18% of the boss's HP, it's still overly lower than the shield, since you can deal the damage to each and every one of them simultaneously compared to a shield. You know, there's only one shield of 45% HP, while there are 4 anglers that combine 64% of the boss HP. You can deal 4 times the damage to the anglers during the same duration of time. By the way, keep in mind that these anglers don't take increased damage from lunar reactions. So here are the 3 methods ranked in terms of usefulness. You break his main shield and get a nice stun. You deal with the anglers and also get a nice stun. Or you lazy it out and wait for that phase to end. I see this is ridiculous, so I can't really advise you to do that under any circumstances. Now for the tips I have for you. I believe going for the anglers isn't advisable because unlike the shield, they don't take 3 times damage from lunar reactions. Secondly, the boss is very weak when stunned, so the plan is simple. When breaking his shield, resist using your burst and cycle buffs. Only start using the buffs when the shield is around 10% HP. That way, your buffs will be able to crack it while still providing buffs for your current DPS characters. It's at its weakest when stunned, so that's the best time to disperse all damage. If you have Llama and Nefer, set up the seeds and prepare the whole perfect case scenario for her right before his shield breaks, because that is genuinely the moment where your characters shine. No element does more damage than the other when he's stunned. The resistance drop is the same for Lunar Charge, Lunar Bloom, and even just pure Pyro from Arlanchino. So if you have a more powerful DPS than your Lunar DPS, it's best to bring them along because they will come in handy. Think of someone like Arlecchino and Muika, 2 characters whose mission is to dish out damage as quickly as possible. You could go for Skirk, though, but I believe her damage output will be greatly reduced due to her team preferences. So with that covered, let's go over the next boss. Here we have the Shock Trooper. He has a relatively lower health of 9.2 million on Fearless and 17.2 million on Dire. This is his first rerun, so I believe some of y'all already know the tricks to him. But to those who don't, let's quickly go over him. So at the start of the fight, he spawns with 3 shields. These shields increase all his elemental resistance except Electro by 60%, so common sense tells us that it's best that you break them first. Do keep in mind that on default without the shield, he has a 10% resistance to all elements, so that's a sum of 70% resistance to all elements except Electro. So the prime team here is, of course, Electro Charged. Now, how do we break his shield? Well, his shield has 4.5% of his max HP. Since he spawns 3 shields, that's a sum of 13.5% HP. This shield takes 600% damage from Electro Charge and 200% from Lunar Charge damage. So he is indeed one of those bosses who wants pure reactions and nothing based on lunar reactions. Personally, from my experience, Lunar Charge deals more damage ticks per cycle, so perhaps that's why they made it 200%? I can't say for certain, but to keep things safe and easy, just come without a Nodcry character. If your best DPS is a Nodcry character, then feel free to take them along with you. The advantage definitely outweighs the disadvantage at that point. Now keep in mind that this shield does regenerate and it only ever slows down when you deal Lunar Charge or Electro Charge damage to it. Basically, it's not much to deal with if you come with the right sets of characters, and hey, you get free energy while breaking the shield, which is an added bonus. In terms of good characters to bring, I'm speaking Flynn's, Anefa, and maybe even Raiden as a secondary DPS. Just bring 2 characters as a trigger, and you can feel free to bring your more powerful DPSs to handle stuffs during the stun phase. Now for the stun phase, he gets all RAS decreases by 50%, and after recovery, Electro RAS decreases by 60%. He is easy, just bring the right characters. He's tanky though, because unlike the Overlord, he doesn't get that nice and spicy negative 60% RAS shred to all elemental damage. Since we've had months dealing with this guy, so I'm sure y'all have gotten the hang of him. Okay, we have one final boss, and that's the Pyro Crab. That's not his real name, but let's just call him that for this video. We faced him in the Imaginarium Theater and even in the Abyss, at least once, if I'm not mistaken. So first of all, this is the least tanky enemy in the Stygian. He has a measly 10% resistance to all elements except for Pyro, where he is a 60% resistance, so that's an additional 50% RES. Now its main mechanics are its horns. While the horn shield is active, it has an additional 150% resistance to every single element, which honestly makes it theoretically undefeatable, as your damage are divided by 3 to 4 at that point. The horns in the Stygian are different compared to the Overworld. The one in the Overworld has 16 units of Pyro, while this one has 64 units. Every time you apply Hydro, you shave off 2 units of the horn shield, so that means for this 64 unit shield, you'll need to apply Pyro 32 times compared to 8 times in the Overworld. So yeah, if you thought he felt a little harder, then that's your answer as to why. This is a chart showing you the amount of each element you need to apply to break the shield. Bringing a Pyro DPS is useless here as they can't break it at all. Also, you might think Cryo is more useful than Hydro, but it too is the same category as Geo and Anemo. The best elements to bring are just Hydro and Electro. A passive Electro applicator like Kuki Shinobu and Raiden is a smart move, while a passive Hydro applicator like Yellen, Genki, or Nuvi is also a smart idea. That's not all about his kit though. This boss spawns 3 smaller crabs, so targeting them is the smarter move here. They have only 12 units of Pyro each, so you'll only need 6 units of Hydro, which Nuvi can get done in like 5 seconds, or about 12 units of Electro, which Kuki and Raiden should be able to handle. Doing this will deplete the main shield of the boss significantly. Killing these crabs too will damage the boss's HP after the shield is broken. Basically like the Bloom Crab, the damage is equal to 60% of the Hydro taken, plus 10% of other damages like Electro. The max damage each smaller crab can do to the boss is 15% of its max HP. So the sum is 45%, which honestly is quite nice. Now, you might be thinking, meh, I'll just focus on the main body and let the excessive splash damage hit the crabs. Then I bring out another DPS when the crab is stunned. Seems simple, right? Well, nope, life is never that simple. If you want that dust of enlightenment, you'll need me to enlighten you on this boss tricks. Because firstly, you'll be shocked to hear that its stun phase is just 10 seconds, and no, he can't be staggered to indirectly increase it. So yes, after 10 seconds, you're back to the same cycle of beating the little crabs and hoping they shave off his health for you. It's a lot of hassle, and honestly, with that 64 Pyro unit shield up again, it's a real pain. So what's the smart idea here? The smart idea is to still deal with the crabs and carry on with the cycle as much as possible. One man is going to make that possible, and I wonder who that is. Basically, we just so happen to have a random guy who's conveniently running in the second phase of this patch, has a nice little new outfit, and is also getting Hydro buffs from the Stygian. Exactly. Neuvillette is the one and only person who makes this cycle possible and feasible in all aspects. He will have the best time of his life here. Heck, even the boss itself buffs Neuvillette's passive. So yes, there is no real simple way to simplify this rather than just taking Nuvi. For the other characters, Mualani seems to be a worthy contender. She can deal a massive amount of Hydro damage to the crabs over a small duration of time. We also have Farina, who is perfect with Nuvi for buffs and consistent Hydro application. Aside from her, we have Xianyun, who basically can give Red Shred when the boss is stunned. And lastly, we have Kazuha, who is able to always buff and swirl Pyro, so that even when the boss is stunned, he'll be swirling Pyro so that you can have constant and perfect vaporized reactions. Now, for tips during play, for this we just have to wait. You see, this boss has an attack pattern where it hits its hand on the ground 2 times and then starts fighting. Now, if you don't move at all, it'll do the 2-hand pattern but then jump towards you and conveniently summon the crabs in a literal straight line. That way you can line them up and deal damage to them simultaneously. In the end, it's all about tactical movement and having a near-perfect run where you take down the little crabs as quickly as possible. Trust me, these are your main source of damage. So, to recap, the first boss is made for lunar attack teams. Here, I advise Columbina, Nefer, Llama, and one last character of your choice. This can be any character that buffs the reaction. Someone like Nahida, Sucrose, or Kazuha. Only use Sucrose if Linz is there since you can't swirl Dendro. For the second boss, we need Electro. So generally, you can bring the whole Flynn squad here. On the other hand, you can grab Verisa and Shinki, or Raiden will use the last 2 slots for your main DPS and their buffer. Think of someone like Arlecchino or Marika paired with Satali. I understand that not everyone has the best Electro DPS, so it's best to leave space for options. For the third boss, we simply have to stick with Neuvillette, Farina, and basically any other Electro character, since we will benefit from Electro too. Do not come with Cryo and Geo. Those 2 are very useless to break a shield. You can bring Kazuha, Sucrose just for the sake of the buff, and Swirling Vape. That way Nuvi gets his passive up basically every moment at the time. Anyways, I'd like to let you know that you subbing to this channel is my main source of happiness. So if you found this video useful, then give it a thumbs up. If not, then feel free to dislike. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.